Okay, so for those who don't know me, my name is Kelly Robinson. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Center for Career Development and also one of the co-coordinators of the DIF program, which is why you and I are hanging out in this same session today. I would like to introduce you to two of our guests, Andy Ho, who is the development director for Salzburg Global Seminar, and Bobby Stearns, who is the current DIF fellow at Salzburg Global Seminar. So Andy and Bobby are going to be leading the discussion today. Housekeeping items that I would ask, if you did not pre-register for the program, if you can just pop your email address into the chat so that I can have it in case I need to send out update or last information to you post the session. Okay, thank you, Bill. All right, Andy, I will let you go ahead and take it from here. Thanks.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you. And it's glad you are all interested in learning more about Salzburg Global Seminar. As Kelly mentioned, my name is Andy, and I'm the U.S. Development Director with Salzburg Global. I'm based in our Washington, D.C. office, and I've been with Salzburg Global just over 5 years. I was at Davidson about a year ago at this time, and it was great to be on campus for the one and only time that I've been there, but beautiful campus. And yeah, it's really too bad that we couldn't all be there now. But we're gonna make the best of what we've got. And I'm just gonna share my screen here, and we're just gonna do a presentation. And then Bobby and I will both do some talking about this Davidson Impact Fellowship with Salzburg Global Seminar. So I don't know if any of you have been to Salzburg, Austria, not Germany, Austria. Maybe a show of hands. I can't really see you guys anyways, but yeah, the building there, that is where we're headquartered. And that's called the Schloss Leopoldskron. It's in Salzburg, Austria, just outside of the old city. I don't know if you can see in the back there, there's it's the fortress up on the hill. And so there's a very interesting story of why we're headquartered there. I won't go into all the full glorious details. But we're also famous for Sound of Music. If you've seen the movie, part of a good chunks of the film were filmed on site at the Schloss. And so happy to talk through that if you're super curious about that. But I'm going to go talk a bit about who we are and what we do first, and then Bobby will say more about his experience as a Davidson Impact Fellow with us. So we got started back in 1947 after World War II. Several Harvard students that were Austrian and American, they came together and they said, how can we prevent another world war after this? We just survived 2 wars in 25 years, devastated the world. How do we get people to talk to one another again so that we can, not fight? And, at the time, if you know your history, there was also the Marshall Plan that was being developed for Europe to rebuild Europe. And so they came up with this idea of having a Marshall Plan for the mind to really bring people together in a safe space to have conversations and build relationships and come to solutions about global issues. And so we had the first seminar in July 1947. It was 6 weeks long. We don't do 6-week seminars anymore. And so the reason it's in Salzburg is because it was held at this palace that is over 300 years, almost 300 years old. It was owned by a guy named Max Reinhardt, who started the Salzburg Festival. If you're into music, you might know about that. So anyways, that's where it got started, and that's how we got started as an organization. And so we're independent, we're a nonprofit. And so we really try to bring people together to gather equally, to think radically, and to act courageously. We challenge people to think about the kind of hard questions and come to solutions. We bring folks together that might not meet otherwise. And so all in all, we're 60 employees. We have 2 offices we're mainly in Salzburg, and then we have a field office in Washington. Currently, we're 10 people in DC. And so, we've got this worldwide network of participants and funding partners. So not just US and Austrian, but we really bring the world together. And so our mission as an organization is to challenge current and future leaders to shape a better world. So you might be wondering, well, how do we do that? And so we do this by, prioritizing topics. If you look at our website, we've got seminars on a number of different topics, ranging from health to education to climate change, arts and culture, finance, corporate governance. And these tend to be smaller sessions. We usually don't do programs more than 65 people. And of course, before COVID, we were doing almost all of these all in Salzburg in person, but we've had to pivot to doing virtual programs. But we really strive to bring the right people to the table. And so it's not only high level leaders. Some organizations only focused on high level, well-known people. We really try to bring together a good mix of senior level as well as emerging leaders. And we really try to ask the questions that need to be asked. Oftentimes, that's part of trying to overcome, barriers to progress. And so, we really foster conditions for change, conditions for trust. We really try to bring sort of a human element so that people aren't only talking from their professional hats, but they're also to, bring out their personal sides as well. And so all of what we try to do is about, fostering collaboration, growing global networks, and then, maximizing results, and in the process, nurturing new leadership. And so throughout our history, we've seen, people that have come through our doors really grow in their relationships with one another. And, that has spawned new collaborations that have led to solutions as well. Here are just some photos of, past seminars taking place in Salzburg. It's a beautiful space. People come, they typically will stay in Salzburg, stay with us for several days. So everyone's in one building. And so it really creates conditions where people can get to know one another quickly and have really substantive conversations. Since March of last year, we've had to do all online programs. But, in a sense, we've been able to bring more people to our programs than previously, whereas people might have had troubles in terms of traveling or, not being able to take the time to spend a week in Salzburg. We've been able to do a number of different programs. And so here's just a list of some of the programs we did last year. You'll see it's a broad range of topics from law to, climate and future of food. We have a forum on LGBT forum. We talked a lot about, obviously, the disruptions of COVID across a number of different sectors, education and, cities and financial regulation. We also started this series called Designs on the Future. And so that brought in some of our more famous former participants. We call them fellows. So Stacey Abrams is a fellow of ours. So she did the seminar on Has Democracy Become a Spectator Sport? We also have what we call academies. These are more focused on university level students and grad students. And so we do a program called the Salzburg Academy on Media and Global Change, geared towards journalism students from around the world. And then we have a Cutler Fellows program, which works with law students from 12 of the top law schools from around the US. Sorry for the typo there on Yale. Here's just a representative list of some of the 37,000 fellows that have come through our programs, of which roughly 16,000 are still alive. But you'll see, yeah, it's a pretty prominent list. The last two there, Dr. Zha and Dr. Wen, you might have seen them on TV recently. They've been talking a lot about COVID. And so, yeah, in our DC office, it's mainly our finance function and our development function, which is fundraising. And so this is our office in DC. We're kind of right in the heart of the city by Metro Center, if you've been to DC. And so we're in a co-working space called the Eden House, which is also a hotel. So it's a really nice space. We've moved to, kind of all of us, well, currently we're all still working from home, but the plan is that once things open up more, that we would continue to all work from home 2 days a week, and then the other 2 to 3 days we would alternate being in the office. So we have space there, and so there's lots of other nonprofits and social enterprises also in this space. So it's a pretty exciting place to be. Here's just other photos of some of the participants that come through our programs. Yeah, and again, it's really a place and a space that really we're able to build relationships up quickly, and people stay in touch well after the programs and really find ways to work together. So here, I'll turn it over to Bobby to say more about the Impact Fellowship.
Yeah, hey everyone, great to see some familiar faces. Hope you're all doing well in this hectic time. So yeah, it's been a really great experience being the Davidson Impact Fellow for Salzburg Global the past several months. It's a really great position. This is just kind of an overview of the typical projects one could expect in this role. And I have had a hand in almost all of these over the course of the last few months, or I will be working on them in the coming months. So really the main two responsibilities of the Impact Fellow is supporting the development team, which is, as Andy said, like the fundraising branch of Salzburg, as well as working with the 2 academies he mentioned earlier, the Media Academy and the Cutler Fellows program on the rule of law. So within the development team, I help both the individual giving, which is, as one might expect, individuals. So you could go and donate to Salzburg Global, and as the DIF, I would be in charge of tracking those gifts, reconciling those with finance, making sure they're all logged in our database correctly, as well as drafting letters to be in communication with these individuals, whether it's outreach to hopefully generate more donations, or acknowledgements, thanking them for their donations. So that's about half the development team. The other half is the institutional side, which is work with like different organizations, foundations, universities, working with them to both write grants for different funds, or having them partner with us to help put together different programs. So for that's a lot of prospect research, so looking at potential organizations that we might want to partner with, or grants we might want to apply for, or just kind of interesting stuff that's going on related to these programs, as well as actually helping with the actual grant applications, which has been a really interesting experience because obviously fundraising grants are a bit different than say like academic grants, which I had some experience with while at Davidson. And so beyond the development work, it is the other side is working with the programs. And so that's a lot of liaising with schools, with the faculty that are help with these programs, scheduling speakers, presenters, and in the age of COVID, which is new, is helping manage with the technical aspects of these academies, of these meetings, of running the Zooms and making sure everyone's set up with the right equipment and stuff. So two pretty different types of projects that you would be working on as the DIF, but both very interesting and require pretty different sets of skills and really expose you to a lot of what the organization has. I'll ask Andy to go to the next slide now. Yeah, so kind of following up on what I was just talking about, I want to share a little bit more about my experience. I'll just go back one, Andy. Yeah, so obviously it has looked a little different this year just because of COVID, but often, or in a normal year, the DIF would be allowed to travel to Salzburg as part of the Media Academy, so help out with that in person or another program. Unfortunately, I most likely won't have that opportunity, but that is certainly a very cool aspect of this opportunity. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on is that despite being remote for my entire time, I've only been into the office actually twice and haven't even met all my coworkers in person, is that you get the experience of working with people both on the Salzburg side and the Washington, DC side. And that's really great working experience because you work with similar level associates all the way up to where I'm working with the CEO of Salzburg Global, Steven Salyer, who's a Davidson alumni actually, helping him with the Cutler program or Cutler Fellows program. So it's just great exposure to a lot of really interesting people. And despite not being in person, I've really felt like I've made really strong relationships with my coworkers, and that they've been exceptionally welcoming and cooperative with overcoming the hurdles that come with a changing work environment. So I just really wanted to highlight that because I know talking to some other Davidson students that is a concern right now of what all these opportunities will look like. But rest assured that Salzburg is a more than welcoming environment, and you will have plenty to do while working for them. Go ahead, Andy. Yeah, so I think a big question that I definitely had coming into the Impact Fellowship is I wasn't quite sure what I saw myself doing in a few years. I wasn't quite sure what skills I wanted to cultivate. And Salzburg sounded like a really interesting place to work, seemed like it had a lot to offer, and I couldn't have been more right in that you gain exposure to many different things as the fellow. So some of the most important things are the exposure to the operations of a nonprofit, of what the fundraising cycles look like, how the programs are set up, what's prioritized, what isn't, what are the things that donors care about, but also the participants, which are often overlapping, but also it's not necessarily exclusive. And also the added benefit of, like I said, working with people who are European based, or we have a lot of cooperation with organizations in Asia and Africa and South America. And so working with these people and trying to put together the best operation possible has been a really great experience, which you can carry into any job moving forward. So yeah, there's a ton to gain, and all of these skills that you learn are applicable to so many fields moving forward, whether you want to be in the nonprofit sphere, or like you're considering maybe law school. I think that working with the Cutler Fellows program, I've had a great insight into the operations of legal system of the law schools, or really any other kind of related field. I think this fellowship prepares you very well for.
Great. So yeah, I'll just talk through that Salzburg Global has a really strong relationship with the college. There's been a lot of faculty that have come through our program as well, and I don't know if you recognize any of these names or not. But yeah, I was able to meet several of them on my visit last year, and they all really enjoyed being in Salzburg. And as Bobby mentioned, our CEO, Steven Salyer, is a Davidson graduate. I think class of 72, something like that. But he came to Salzburg to a program when he was 24. And that profoundly kind of shaped his kind of career. And I guess the opportunity came up for him to become CEO back in 2005. And so he kind of held that, connection through all those years. And I would also just add that, as the Impact Fellow, you'll actually work a lot with Stephen, the CEO, which I would say for a fresh college grad, that's not something you will get at most places. And Stephen is very approachable. And I think, obviously the Davidson connection helps. And, Stephen really holds his Davidson connection very highly. I think he served on the Davidson board at some point as well in the past. So I would say that is also another added sort of learning experience, getting to really work closely with a CEO. Here's just a list of the Impact Fellows that have been with Salzburg Global. As you can see, we've had 7 years of the Impact Fellowship, and it's been really great for the organization. Bobby mentioned, you get a ton of different kinds of skills that can take you in a bunch of different places, and that's very true. Just a couple examples, like Molly Walker, after Salzburg, she stayed on an extra year as an associate and then full-time, and then went on to Harvard to do a PhD in history. Elizabeth Cowan, she went to do a master's program at Trinity College, or Trinity in Ireland, in Dublin, and she's working in Ireland now for a nonprofit. Allison stayed on an extra year after her fellowship, and she's now doing an MBA at Stanford. So really a broad range of places you can go. And our goal is that, we can equip you with broad experience and, broad set of skills that then you can take to really go take your next step. So that's it as far as the presentation. Bobby and I are happy to take any questions, either over the chat, or I guess you can unmute yourself too. Thanks.
Nabil, I see you raised your hand.
Yep. Hey guys, really appreciate you guys doing this. It's been super interesting. Just have questions in terms of like the seminar, getting together and talking about these issues. What would you guys say is the usual route to making action steps after these meetings?
So a couple of ways. Sometimes people will continue their conversations after the meeting, whether they're from the same geography or the same place. Other times, kind of the end result is that we publish what we call a Salzburg statement, which is sort of like a statement of commitment to say, out of this 4-day meeting, the participants are agreeing to do A, B, and C. And so there's follow-up meetings to kind of hold each other accountable to those action steps, and then just kind of tracking, the impact of the program. Who did you meet that made a profound difference in the way you work? How are you collaborating with folks that you met as a result of being part of this program, et cetera.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Helena, go ahead. You had a question?
Yes, I do. So I understand that Salzburg covers like a myriad of topics such as justice and security and planet and health. So what kind of skills or exposure are you guys looking for in a potential candidate?
So I think we're looking for people that can demonstrate a sort of intellectual curiosity, and that can learn quickly across a broad range of different topics. As Bobby mentioned, he's got kind of thrown in the deep end in a way, not having been able to meet colleagues and get the normal sort of onboarding, but you have to be able to at least know a little bit about the topic to be able to help out. And so part of it, it's a very, it's an intellectually rich kind of environment. And so we want people that can demonstrate that they can, that they want to be in this kind of a place, that they can kind of thrive in kind of conversations about a broad range of different ideas. And then I think we also look for people that are personable, that can kind of relate and be able to communicate with a broad range of folks, both internally and externally. So kind of good communication skills. Certainly writing skills is a key part of this, both in terms of helping out with proposals, but writing correspondence on behalf of the CEO, things like that. Bobby, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, I think that that was a pretty good overview of at least the skills that I found the most helpful in kind of entering this role, and that you have to be, I think, curious and someone who is willing to ask questions and yes, willing to interact with people no matter where they're from, what their background, because Salzburg interacts with so many different people. And so just having an open mindset and someone who is willing to engage with ideas and different people, different backgrounds, I think as well as just good communication skills is what will set you up for the most success.
Harris, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question for Bobby. Good to see you again, Bobby. But my question is, how, given your time at Salzburg so far, how do you think this has informed your skill set? What skills do you think you've gained from your experience at Salzburg, and how do you think those are going to impact or augment a future career?
That's a good question. I think the most immediate kind of skill I've gained or refined, I think, is the various forms of communication that I've been asked to kind of get used to, in part because of Zoom and that some of these things would just be in person, but being able to communicate, say, an organizational stance that's going on the website versus writing letters to donors versus talking with colleagues about different problems or how to resolve something. And I think kind of one thing that's kind of glossed over is that, good communication skills, and communication looks and sounds like many different forms nowadays. And so having kind of being able to readjust and reemphasize those skills, both through practice, but also watching how others communicate, and that seeing how people communicate in these academies and during the programs has been very beneficial. And I think that translates to almost any career. I can't imagine much where that wouldn't be beneficial. I think another thing has, pretty classic answer, but also time management, in that there's pretty set schedules within, say, the development world of deadlines and expectations in terms of submitting things to other organizations or getting back to individual donors, stuff like that. And so being able to recognize and prioritize which projects you're working on need immediate attention versus which can wait a little while. And I think this role has just been really good at showing me, one, how to communicate and understand which of those projects require, say, immediate attention versus being able to or put one on the back burner and talk to, say, my manager, Andy, or the CEO, Stephen, and saying, I have this, but I need to work on this first. I'll get this to you by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning, setting those expectations. And so then on a personal level, I'm not still trying to figure out what I'm doing next, but I think all of these skills would apply to almost anything I'd want to do next.
I'm going to go ahead and ask like a logistics question, Andy, with regard to, I think you had mentioned that the plan is to transition to being in the office like part-time. Do you, and I know this is all like to be determined, do you anticipate like knowing when that will be? I know I've had questions from some applicants, are these positions going to start remote and then transition to in person, or kind of what's the timeline with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're following kind of the local DC guidelines for
Mhm.
that. And so, when the DC government says it's safe to sort of reopen, I think we will. But as of now, we're giving all employees still the option to stay home if they don't feel comfortable coming in. But even after, we are fully open, it will still be kind of an alternate work schedule where half the DC office will be in on any given day. And so you would come in, at most 3 times a week and then be working from home the other 2 days.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm. If
Anyone
I
else?
may just,
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
yeah, if I might just add to what Bobby said earlier, this impact fellowship is really kind of, yeah, like we throw a lot at the impact fellow. It's not like, doing, filing papers and, getting coffee. I mean, there's a lot of real responsibility and we really rely on the fellow to come through. And so both in terms of, all the different aspects of development, but especially around the programs that Bobby mentioned. And, really the fellow is the kind of project manager for these programs. And they're not small programs to manage. And so there's a lot involved. And so we really want someone that, can jump in and that is willing to learn and take responsibility. And again, you're interacting with folks internally, up through all the way up through the CEO. And so, somebody that has a real sense of, maturity about themselves, that can handle that type of interaction. And then also, interacting with donors, up all the way up through our board members, who are some of our most generous donors. And these are people that are giving, $25,000 a year to us. And so it demands, a certain, level of, expectation in terms of how we communicate and how we interact with these folks. And so, yeah, so again, I think you'll learn a lot through this fellowship.
I think what I appreciate you both saying, and Andy, when you shared the screen of the previous Impact Fellows, is
Mhm.
this really can be an opportunity to learn some great transitional skills, because I'm quite certain that the previous fellows did not know where, they did not anticipate that either they would be going to the master's program that they did or staying on an additional year to be in an associate role.
Mhm.
That was not set in stone prior to them doing this fellowship. So it
Mhm.
does serve as a great opportunity to transition you to pivot into a lot of different areas. So thank
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have other questions? I'm sorry, I'm not good at the Zoom silence, you guys. I'm not. So I don't want to speed it up, but if people have questions that they would like to ask, feel free to raise your hand or blurt out or post in the chat. No?
I'm curious to know who some of your largest institutional partners are currently.
Yeah, so a lot of them are foundations. So the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation up in Princeton, New Jersey, they're one of the largest health funders in the country, have about $10 billion in assets. So they support our health and healthcare program, which is looking at kind of global best practices in health. And so it's a multi-year program. Another large funder is called the Bosch Foundation in Germany. And they also support a number of different programs, one of which is a health leaders fellowship for European-based health leaders. So they're doing that in conjunction with 2 other funders in Europe. Another one is called the Kresge Foundation out of Michigan. They fund something called the Young Cultural Innovators Program, which brings together young, talented artists and people working in the cultural sector from around the world together for a week-long program. And then they also support kind of regional convenings. So Kresge in particular supporting people from Memphis, Detroit, and New Orleans, which is their geographies of interest. And so they're bringing these folks and connecting them to this global network that spans 20 cities. And we've been running it for 7 years now. So there's over 350 participants in this Young Cultural Innovators program. And so, yeah, that's just a small kind of example, some of the examples of our major partners.
Okay. Bobby or Andy, did either of you have any, closing thoughts or anything before we conclude?
I would just say that, again, it's okay if you don't fully know what you want to do after this fellowship. I think, what we can offer is, a lot of exposure to a lot of different, areas. But, look at all our program areas, right? So if there's 1 or 2 that pique your interest and you want to learn more, we can also connect you to have conversations with participants, that have come through. And so, yeah, again, there's no shortage of sort of things you can learn through this fellowship. And obviously, if you're interested in development or fundraising as a career, if you have some of that experience, whether it's through different school activities or through an internship, that's always a plus. But again, like demonstrating that interest in fundraising and perhaps wanting a career in the nonprofit sector or working globally. How you can translate some of your experiences, whether you've studied abroad or whether you've worked internationally. Those are all things that can be pluses in your application.
Yeah, I couldn't recommend this experience enough. I had an idea of kind of what I wanted to do coming out of Davidson, no real set path though, and it's kind of got lucky in that I found this and that it set me in the right mindset of what I can do post Davidson, and that they're really like, if you're skilled, you have these different assets that you can contribute to any work setting, that you'll be not just okay, but be very happy with whatever you end up doing. And I think Salzburg is an excellent opportunity you can focus if you have more interest in development versus the programs or whatever. There are opportunities to spend more time focusing on those and taking on your own initiative within those different teams at Salzburg Global. And so there definitely are, like Andy was saying, that there are high expectations for the Impact Fellow, and that you will just kind of be tossed in, and a lot is expected of you, which is I think good, and also but not in the way where it's like you're working 60-70 hours a day doing a lot of work. It's that you're actually doing things that matter for the organization and for the fellows that you're serving. So like I said, I couldn't recommend this experience enough, and I think it is really beneficial, regardless of what you want to do years down the road.
Well, thank you to both of you for taking the time out of the workday to attend, and I thank all of the students for attending. Nabil, did you have a follow-up question? No?
Oh,
Okay.
no, that was an applause.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't tell the difference between raising hand and clapping. I still haven't gotten that down. So, okay. Well, just as a reminder to everybody, the deadline, this position is posted in Handshake. And so the deadline to apply to this position, like the other Impact Fellowship positions, is March 7th. So if you have any questions, I'm sure, reach out to me. And otherwise, thanks for attending, you guys. And I hope you all have a great rest of the afternoon.